Welcome back to Taco Bowler Gaming. My name is Taco Bowler, and we are going to have one of our final episodes of the tutorial series here today. I am playing as Spain, and we're going to talk about colonialism. Colonialism and colony in general is a very interesting mechanic. In order to unlock colonies, you need to have a colonist. You get colonists. Most nations get colonists by taking exploration ideas or expansion ideas. You can see here exploration has +1 here in Colonial Ventures, and come on, there you go. Expansion gets a colonist here in the first idea and in the second to last idea over here. Spain, in their national ideas, as well as a couple of other nations, also has yet another colonist. Here in the second idea, so that's why I have 2 colonists here. You need 1 colonist to start a colony. You do not, however, need a colonist to continue a colony. So I can start a colony, and then once it is actually started, I can pull that colonist back and send him to another colony. So that is a thing. There are different places that you can colonize. In North America, South America, and Australia, you have things called colonial regions. These create colonial nations in each one of these. And the idea that Paradox wants is that those colonial nations will control any of the things that you have in that area. So right now I have one in colonial Mexico. New Spain controls that. I have one in La Plata. Spanish La Plata controls that. I have one in Peru. Spanish Peru would control that. If I were to get a new colony, if I were to take this colony, get it all the way to a core to finish up, have it look like this, then immediately that province would go to New Spain. Just get transferred automatically over to New Spain. If I were to conquer any land in the area, like if I were to conquer the Itza, then as soon as I took that land for myself, it would immediately go over to New Spain, and they would be in charge of coring that land. You also, if you were fighting a war with another power, like if I were to fight with Portugal, and if I had a colony in Brazil, which that's one of the colonial regions, Brazil. I don't have a colony in Brazil. There's a reason for that, and we'll get to that in a moment. But if I did, and I were fighting Brazil, or fighting Portugal, who owned Brazil, there would be an option to concede the colonial region. And then every province in that colony would go to me at an extremely low cost in terms of war score. It's a very fast way to get really, really powerful over here. Colonial nations give you money. They give you a certain amount of their taxes based on their tariff, their colonial income. And they also give you force limit. They will adjust your force limit up, and I think adjust your naval force limit, which vassals do not do. I don't have the ability to see that, but yeah, I think they do that as well. In order to see over here, you need to have exploration ideas, and this first idea, Quest for the New World, allows you to recruit explorers and conquistadors, which is over here. I have an explorer and a conquistador, which is different from a general and an admiral. The explorer is navy, the conquistador is army. They serve the same function, but they can also explore. So in order to walk into this territory that is land unknown, I need a conquistador. The general can't walk into it. A conquistador can, and it's a little bit slower. Likewise, in the sea, if I want to go here, I need an explorer. And with DLC, it might be a part of the base game, but I think it's a DLC only. They actually create a mission to go explore. Without DLC, you just can direct the ships that have an explorer on it to go into this area, and they will. The other things is if you're colonizing any territory that's not in a colonial region, like if I were to try and colonize over here in Africa, some of this area, then that will become my core and it will stay with me. There are also, finally, places you can't colonize. So I can colonize here, but this is a wasteland. So I can't colonize there, but there is this little province here. I could colonize there, but I can't colonize here. And then finally you get down to the Cape of Africa, where South Africa is, and I could colonize down there as well. So there's little areas you can't colonize. There's another group like that over here. And then there are territories here and here that start the game as uncolonized. There's also one here that start the game as uncolonized. You have to fill that in if you want to conquest across that gap. There's a few over here as well that start that way. You have to fill it in with a colonist if you want to conquest across that gap instead of going around. But that is where that is. As soon as your colonist arrives, let's go ahead and send a colonist. You send a colonist, let's go one day. So you click on a province, you send a colonist, and the colonist will arrive in a certain amount of days. The colonist arrives in 51 days here. If I want to, I can send a colonist over here, and he will arrive in 84 days. Excuse me. And so they will arrive. If you recall them, they jump back to you immediately, and you can send them the next day to somewhere else. Once you unlock a colonist, you will get a notification that you need to pick a colonial venture. That might be DLC, a colonial strategy or something like that. That will adjust how many settlers you get per year. There are other things, of course, that can change that. Technology, diplomatic technology, increases the amount of settlers you get per year in a colony. And then ideas in exploration and expansion will also increase that. As well as some national ideas. I think Portugal has a little bit that increase that as well. And so in the early game, your colonies grow very slowly. As you increase your settler increase, they grow faster and faster and faster. And by the end of the game, by the mid-game, 1650 or so, they're growing at about 100 per month, or per year, which means they're going to grow very, very quickly. You get a few events tagged on there, and fantastic, you have a colony very, very quickly. If you get 5 in any colonial region, you need 5 to set up a new colonial nation. So one way to do that would be, if I wanted to, I could actually set my colonist here in Chatot. I could colonize here and then conquer from the creek another 3. And that would give me 4. Actually, in this case, it would give me 4 plus 5 plus 6. And as soon as I cored only 2 of those, then the colonial nation would form, and usually it's Florida for Spain. It would be like 13 colonies for England or something like that. You get an opportunity to name them, and people name them interesting names all the time. One thing to remember is that when the colonial nation forms, it will form under the culture and religion of the majority of the provinces. When you colonize, you instill your culture and your religion. If you steal a colony from somebody else, it's their culture, but you can, especially if you steal it early, you might still be able to convert them, but usually it's their culture and their religion. And of course, if you steal a core from one of the natives, it's going to be their culture and their religion. That's kind of important because Liberty Desire is based on, in part, the nation's opinion of you, and sometimes different religion or not, I think. No, apparently not, because Netherlands is not there. But Netherlands is a different religion from me. They are Reformed, I am Catholic, and their neighboring heretic religion, minus 20. If they have a different culture here in the colonial region, that can sometimes affect their opinion of you too, which might increase the Liberty Desire, which is kind of important if you're not really, really big over here, like Ottoman level big, than a large colony like Mexico usually gets, or like Brazil can get, might have a very high liberty desire, and they might declare independence, and you have to fight a war against them. That's no fun. But that's a little bit there. Let's go ahead and get our colonists to the territory. You can see down here, there's a colonists. Oh, I'll keep that there. There's a colonist tab over here on the outlier, and so you can see how long they're going to take, and then after that, the percent chance that they will give you an event that gives you a free 100 settlers in the colony. Hopefully we get that event, but I am doubting it. So here we have Terrarum naval supplies, so you can get events that let you increase the tariff or do nothing, and you can have a 33% chance of gaining 10 administrative power, 10 diplomatic power, 10 military power. I don't think that this is a guarantee you get one of these and it's a 1/3 chance of each one. I think it is you could get all three or you could get 0. Now, if you remember from my economy page, I talked about how you can decrease and increase the tariffs, and each tariff, and you spend administrative power to do that, and each tariff is 5% liberty desire. So if I give New Spain a 5% tariff value, then their tariff is going up, and perhaps, so after a day, look at that, it's up to 49 now. Normally speaking, tariffs don't give you a ton of money. I mean, this is really a big tariff. Their tariff is 33%. It gives me 4.61 ducats. At this point, my income is 78. Usually, if I get that event, I just automatically click, nope, I'm going to try and get some from free admin power, because I don't really care. I don't want their liberty desire to be very high. I want them to give me troops and fleet and a little bit of money and no problems. So I don't ever want to increase tariffs, and usually if I have an opportunity to decrease them, I'll decrease them if I want to. I don't care about this 0.31 ducats coming from Spanish La Plata. I do care, though, that they don't give me any trouble. So that's something to consider there. Let's go ahead and get the colonists over to the land. So the first one that's going to arrive down here in Biafada in 6 days. And so there he is. And immediately, wow, okay. Immediately, there's a native uprising. I don't think I've ever seen that happen on the first day. That is incredibly unlucky. So, unless you have a nativist policy, and I think that's what they're actually called, to suppress that, there's a chance that they'll have an uprising. That's, oh no. All right, well, sure. This is just a simple rebellion. Natives are incredibly weak, but if they successfully siege the province down, they will damage it. Usually they take off like somewhere between 200 and 300 settlers, which right now I have 37. So once they do that, they will damage it, and this will actually go away. It's incredibly unlucky, but it is what it is. Now you will see I have a colonist that has arrived, and so that costs me 2 ducats per month to maintain this colony, as long as it's here. So you might want to put some troops on the colony in order to ensure that that doesn't happen. In fact, knowing that I've got a guy coming over here, I might want to put some troops on there. I'm going to recruit 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see here the number of natives in the province is the size of the revolt should it happen. The aggressiveness is the likelihood that there would be a revolt. The ferocity is the damage that a revolt would do. If a revolt happens here, it's not going to be anything at all. Let's go ahead and just lose that one. Oh, sure. All right, so we have our second colonist. All right, so they won the siege. They damaged our colony. And if I go to, the colony is gone. My colonist has returned. So that's, not great. Oh no. Let's go ahead and send him back. You can see here a lot more aggressive, a lot more ferocious, a lot more damage to be done in that 4,000 modifier, right? There are places like this out here where it's 0. Now, if you'll notice, someone else has already sent a colonist here. Portugal has sent a colonist here, so I can't send one. I also couldn't send a colonist here, and there's a reason for that. And that is something called Colonial Range. So that's this map mode here. All this green, I can send a colonist to. Right now, my Colonial Range is 638. There is a value in game for the distance between one province and another. And I can go 638 of that distance, 425 from technology, and then that's increased through an exploration idea called overseas exploration. So I can go pretty far. My closest colony, my closest province is this one, I think. You also can go from any previous colony, so I could go off of any of these. So I can go pretty far. I can get all the way down over here. But I can't go here because it is 645 away. Now, there are ways to increase your colonial range. There is an advisor that can do it. I don't think you can recruit them, though. Nope. Nope. There is an advisor that can do it. So if you have the DLC to be able to fire advisors and rotate them through, you could search for that. There's also a parliament decision that can do that if you're England and have a parliament. But so I could, send some colonies down here. I'm also going to, the next time, I'm going to go ahead and send that colonist back. He will arrive in 51 days again. But this time, I'm going to say, you know what? I want to make sure that that rebellion doesn't happen again. I'm going to take 16,000 men. And I'm going to go over to my... Oh, let's just go here. I'm going to take all of this and half of this. I'm going to send that over here. I'm going to put them on a boat. I'm going to attach to transport. And I'm going to find my transports. And I'm going to transport them over here. And I'm going to put them on here. Just so that in 51 days, when my colonist arrives, if they rebel again, this time I'm going to have an army waiting for them. Now, this colonist is here. He has a 19.8% chance that he gets the 100 settlers event. As your colony gets bigger, that number goes down and goes down and goes down. He has arrived, so I have a 2. Okay. Right now, I gain 45 settlers a year. That was the value in this box here. I can increase that through the interactions with the estates. The estates are changing 1.30, but I think this interaction will remain or something like it. I can grant a New World Charter for 15 influence. That will give me a global settler increase of 10. I can also establish New World missions, which decreases the likelihood that they will uprise. That's nice. Increases the likelihood that I will get the event of getting plus 100. And it also is 15 influence for the clergy. So now I have 55 settlers per month. And I got one of these events, right? That can increase the number of things. So this is my colony here in Mokana. I can repel them, and I gain 200 population, and the locals lose some of their population. If I went here, I could gain a base tax. Right now, you can see that the development is 111. If I did this, I could lose 50 ducats, but get a base tax, which would increase my tax once that colony is done. or in this case, the tax of my colonial nation, or I can allow them to live in peace. I lose 2 prestige and nothing happens. I'm going to obviously repel the savages. And so now you can see that now their size is 200, and I now have 210 settlers. And it goes up by that 55 a year. That is this number here. I'm going to go ahead and recall this guy. 1 day later, I have, here. Once you have recalled the colonist, the likelihood that they get that event is reduced to virtually nothing, perhaps exactly nothing. And then you can abandon the colony, in which case you can just leave it. So if you can't afford a colony, you recall the colonist and then abandon the colony. But I can go ahead and send him over here. Now their aggressiveness is significantly higher, but they're still only 500, and they still don't do much damage, so I don't think there's that much of a revolt risk, but I have this nice little troop here. I'm going to move him over here just to make sure. So we'll let those 2 colonists get to where they're going here at speed 5. Fantastic. Oh, so I get a conquistador. Nice. I wonder if... Okay, so one thing that can happen is if you move into a uncolonized territory, those natives might fire. And I do believe that it's a minimum of 1,000 just because you need that to siege a province. So even though it says 500, if they were to rebel, I do think it's 1,000. You can see here that they have 1,000. But you can also see that my troops are doing quite a number on them here. So let's go ahead and finish them off. Fantastic, right? There's a chance of that happening anytime you travel into an uncolonized province. Now, one thing that you can do here is you can attack the natives. It will cost military power, and it is based on the amount of troops that they have there. They can get pretty expensive, but usually in the New World, it's not very expensive at all. In Africa and Asia, it is very expensive. If I wanted to, I could attack the natives, and 500, maybe that minimum of 1,000, would rise up, and I would have to fight them off. But if I did, then 500 would go to 0, and there would be no chance of a revolt, because there's no one here. Right? I just purge it, genocide, take it out. I'm going to go ahead and land my troops here. And I'm going to do that to these guys. They attacked me. I don't want that to happen again. I want to use this army somewhere else, so I just want to deal with it. I'm going to spend 40 power, right? The other one was 1. This is 40 power. 40 military power. I'm just going to get rid of it. I am going to put a general in charge, just so it's a little bit quicker and easier. And you can see that, 4,000 of them rise up immediately. They are struck down. That is now 0. There will not be a rebellion here again. So you have a couple of ways of dealing with that. You can just stack an army of 4,000 or 5,000, infantry on there and deal with it when they pop up. You can pray and hope that it doesn't get done, doesn't have a rebellion, or you can take care of it there and get rid of it, and then you can hop your troops back on a transport and bring them back, and life will be great. So there's several ways to deal with that. And so let's go ahead and get the colonists. 16 days. Now you notice there's colonies, and this is the number of settlers in that colony. And then there's colonists, and this is the % chance of getting that event that gives you 100 or 200 new colonists. So now you can see they've both arrived. I have 3 colonies, and it now costs 8. So you can see here that the first 2 cost 2 ducats per month. The third one cost 4 ducats per month. If I built a 4th one, it would cost 8 ducats a month, and then 16 ducats, and so on and so forth. It's 2 ducats per month per colonist you have. So if I have the maximum for Spain of 4 colonists, then then I would have the ability to do 4 colonies at 2, and then the 5th one would cost me 4, the 6th one would cost me on up. But right now I only have 2 colonists, so this is, kind of the max here. The basic idea is so you can't just colonize everything all at once, right, by just pulling your colonists back. That's, something to really consider here. I'm going to go ahead and recall, abandon. They actually did rise up? That's really unexpected. Okay. Let's see if I can... No, I can't. Okay, so if you have a DLC, I think it is the one for Spain, Golden Century, then you can, when you click send to a colonial region, you have an opportunity to expel a minority, which would take a non-majority culture or non-accepted culture, like for instance right now, Berber, and I would pay diplomatic power to spend half the ducats per month to get that colony going, and at the end of it all, this would automatically switch to Castilian culture and Catholicism, but the colony would be Berber culture and Sunni, with the possibility that the actual colony would become Sunni itself, which would be make it so that they didn't like me nearly as much. So that's there. Your goal as a colony is to get the settler count to 1,000. When it gets to 1,000, they create a city. They create a province. They become a core of your land. When you get to 5 in a colonial region, they get given away. So that is the basics of colonization. The last thing to talk about is that every colonial nation has as their ideas, they get a colonist in their ideas. So New Granada has a colonist, Portuguese Brazil has a colonist, Hispaniola has a colonist. They are allowed to send that colonist, I think, to anything that borders them, but definitely anything in their trade or in their colonial region. So I have 2 colonists. They each cost me 2 ducats per month. If I wanted to build a 3rd colony, then that would cost me 4 ducats a month. We went over that. However, New Spain has 1 colonist. They could build a colony for 2 ducats a month. So if I subsidize them for 2 ducats a month, they might build a colony. And so I could build that 3rd colony in my lands without spending the extra ducats, by just giving money to my colony, and they will start that colonist. They will start going until their colonial region is filled up. Right now, Peru is filled up, and Colombia is close, but they still have some room over here. Let's go ahead and pull that up. Colombia could build over here. Peru is full. La Plata has a lot of land down here that they could build, and obviously Portugal could fund Brazil really, really well. It's not uncommon for me, once I get 5 in a colonial region, create that new colonial nation, I will do this, and then I will click shift and click this up to 400 years, and I will just be giving them 2 ducats a month to go and colonize that region. I'll move on to the next one. And that really is way more cost efficient than going over the colonial limit. But that's kind of where we are. That is colonialism in a nutshell. As far as the big thing for colonialism is the institution, colonialism and colonists. And that spawns in 1500, or has a chance to spawn in 1500. And any coastal province that is 12 development in a nation that has found the New World has a chance to spawn that institution. Most times it spawns in Spain or England. But if you happen to have a nation that is exploring very, very quickly in Asia, like a Japan could do it, a Korea could do it, they might have a chance to spawn it, at least give it a chance. If you have Western Africa, if you're playing Mali, you definitely could do that. You could develop these coastal provinces, discover America. You can get there somewhat quickly. You can get there very close to 1500 if you rush it. And so you have that opportunity to spawn that, but it does here. And then colonialism grows in the capital of any nation that has a colonial nation. So once colonialism has spawned, if you can get 5 provinces in any one colonial nation, all of a sudden colonialism will spawn in your capital, and therefore you don't have to develop that. So it's really nice if you do decide to colonize, if you do decide to take exploration ideas. Not only do you get force limit, not only do you get money, but you also don't have to develop that institution if you are playing outside of Europe. If you're playing inside Europe, it will kind of naturally get to you from England or Spain over till at least here in a somewhat timely manner. You don't have to develop it or try and colonize anyway. Typically speaking, it makes sense to go colonial if you are in Iberia, if you're in the British Isles, maybe if you're playing a Denmark-Norway game, to head over here off of Iceland. If you're in Africa, I think it's an undervalued thing to quickly try and get to exploration and develop some South American colonies and deny that force limit to Iberia. And also, if you are playing over here in India, especially in southern India, colonizing this area is really good. These are some of the best provinces in the entire game. Colonizing that area is very nice. Also, if you're like Japan or Korea, colonizing this is very nice. So that is a guide to colonialism and how to colonize. I have been Takabuller. I hope you have enjoyed this. On the left, you should see a video that YouTube recommends. On the right, you will see the tutorial playlist, and in the middle is a chance to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, please like, comment down below, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.